Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Eric Bell, and I'm with Advanced Telecom Solutions. And we've been helping out with the webinar on driver safety with North Coast Builders Exchange. And I'm actually a fellow member as well of the North Coast Builders Exchange. In a few minutes, I'm going to introduce our other partner, Azuga, who's joining us today. Um, we understand your time is very valuable, so we're going to keep the session really focused, practical, and worthwhile. In terms of what we're going to do today, the topic today is fleet safety, and more specifically, it's going to be on how to protect, how to be proactive rather than reactive. And so, whether you crew or just a few work trucks, the insights today are designed to help you coach your drivers more effectively, reduce incidents, and improve safety across your team. Uh, Side note, if you have any questions along the way, just drop them in the chat and we'll be sure to circle back at the end. And with that, I'm going to hand things over to Chris from Azuga, who's going to take it away.
And I certainly will, Eric. Thank you so much. And of course, thank you to the NCBE community for having us. So I'm Chris Johnson. I'm the Vice President of Business Development at Azuga. At Azuga, we work with fleets across construction, field services, and transportation to help them improve safety, reduce liability, and more importantly, foster a culture of accountability. And we say safety, we don't mean just on the job site. Like for us, in the world of fleet telematics, the job site for us helping our customers starts at the moment a driver turns on their ignition, right? Unfortunately, every year, thousands of crashes involving commercial vehicles happen on our roads, and construction fleets, unfortunately, are not an exception. As we all know, these incidents lead to equipment damage, property damage, project delays, insurance spikes, and most importantly, potential litigation. And according to the industry reports that we're exposed to, the average cost of a fleet accident now is over $70,000, and even higher, unfortunately, when injuries are involved. So couple that with the fact that commercial automotive insurance premiums, they've risen by more than 50% over the last decade, definitely driven by nuclear verdicts, the rising repair costs that it takes to repair a vehicle nowadays, and more importantly, a heightened focus on accountability to help mitigate that. But while most accidents are minor, most tragic ones are not. And, to really talk about something that we don't like to truly talk about, transportation-related fatalities still remain the leading cause of occupational deaths in the construction sector. But the good news is that these risks are manageable. Most unsafe driving behaviors are definitely observable, most definitely coachable now, and now even correctable, right? Telematics makes all this possible by giving you the data to act before something happens, not just after. Now, you might already be enjoying the traditional return on investment from the operational efficiency side of telematics, your GPS tracking system, and even potentially if you have video dash cams, right? But when fleets make the shift to safety-focused telematics, which is really the theme of today's presentation, the return on investment is definitely clear, because what we find is that companies that implement safety telematics report up to a 60% reduction in accidents. And coupling that with the fact that insurance claims related to driver behavior could reduce by 30 to 40% within the first year of implementing a safety coaching driver telematics focused solution. And of course, there'll still be that benefit of reduced fuel costs, better operational efficiency, right? Improved accountability that comes along for the ride with location-based driver systems. And for us, like driver retention, we help our customers understand that employees know that their safety is being prioritized, not just monitored, right? So all that I explained to you above, those aren't just numbers though. They represent what we hope to help consult our customers with regarding fewer headaches, lower costs, and more importantly, safer roads for everyone. Like, I live in New Jersey. I enjoy the New Jersey Turnpike, and on occasion, I'll see a vehicle with no camera, unfortunately, try to drive me off the side of the road. So I live and breathe that in real life, and then sometimes I'll look in the mirror and I'll see if they have a camera. Because usually if they have a camera, I don't have the same incidents with some larger trucks than which I know is probably a driver coaching solution. Like, then if they did not have one, and that driver unfortunately is not being held accountable. So to really make this relevant to everybody, I wanted to walk everyone through a real world journey of one of your own. And we're talking about Granite Construction, who is a member of the NCBE and also someone who's embraced safety telematics. And we spoke with Mike Willis, who kind of heads that project up. And he's the area manager of Granite Construction. We recently sat down with Mike and we talked to him about how Granite deployed telematics to enhance their already strong safety culture. And his perspective in our conversation was insightful, was practical, and was very highly relatable for us here in the construction vertical. So we're going to be actually playing some snippets of a conversation we had with Mike, right, related to his deployment of safety telematics, and more importantly, the measurable impact it made at Granite Construction. Also with me today, by the way, behind the scenes, are two incredible members of the Azuga team. We have Tracy Avanzo, who leads our business development efforts, and Tammy Strand, our head of marketing. They've both played a big role in helping share success stories like this one, and we are honored to be partnering with Eric within the association to help deliver this message. So we'll start playing some of those short clips from our interview with Mike throughout today's session to really illustrate how a thoughtful approach to technology can help transform safety outcomes, right? So, during our conversation with Mike, when we first talked to him about safety telematics in general, we wanted to know why they made a switch from a traditional GPS tracking slash, fleet telematics platform to more of a safety telematics platform. Because many construction fleets, like potentially yourselves, you already kind of have some sort of tracking system in place. But what we find is that not often visible, actionable, or even embraced by the team, and most definitely not always the drivers. So we asked Mike what motivated him to explore something new. And we have a clip to show you to talk about just that.
In place, but actually none of our drivers knew we had a solution in place. There was nothing visible to them. There were some spreadsheet reports that would come out once a month, but they weren't engaged in the process. And I had a brother-in-law that's a truck driver, and he was on a platform that was receiving weekly scores on their mobile phone, and would also receive feedback in the cab. And so I searched out to try to find something where drivers could get a instantaneous feedback of when they were doing something that was not correct, hard braking, hard acceleration, set over a certain speed limit, doing something that was really against our policy, and they would get immediate feedback. And we found that in Azuga, where they have an in-cab device that would beep at the driver to tell them, oh, this is a hard braking, oh, this is hard acceleration. And we found that people just didn't have a good sense of when they were creating these violations in our program and when they were being a bad driver. They'd get this report and they couldn't really tie the report to what they were actually doing because, that was 20 days ago. They couldn't remember it. But if they're in the cab and they are riding the brakes or, waiting to the last minute to apply the brakes, they're getting that in-cab warning. And we saw really an instantaneous improvement because we had this other system in the background that was actually recording the same stuff that Azuga does, but wasn't giving the drivers the immediate feedback. And when we put in the system with Azuga that gave the drivers the immediate feedback, we saw the other system that was still recording really drop down in the number of instances. So we knew, okay, this is working. When we're giving the drivers, hey, this is the expectation, and this is really measuring you for if you're a good driver or not. And then the other thing that happened was they were scored with all roughly 100 other drivers. And so if they were driver number 999 or 100, you didn't have to make any phone calls to that driver to say, hey, you're 99 or 100. They knew it. And the next week, I guarantee they were not in that. And so that really achieved what I wanted, is that, you know, employees and people in general, they want to do a good job, but they need to be measured and get that feedback instantaneous. And the faster you can give that feedback, the more likely you are to have good results. And that's what we've seen, is we're giving the drivers the feedback, and we have the results that we're looking for.
Yeah, and as you just heard, listen, that existing solution lacked visibility. Drivers didn't know that it was even active, and their lack of awareness and real-time coaching feedback prevented it from changing behavior. But that new system Granite deployed that incorporated driver coaching in real time via audible alerts, right? That cab after a hard brake or a sudden acceleration or a speeding event, like that became a tool that drivers could engage with. And more importantly, that managers could use to coach constructively. So I had us thinking, like, change management, though, it's harder than the technology itself. And we asked Mike how he introduced the new platform to his team. And we wanted to know about his rollout plan. So let's hear his clip about how he actually was able to deploy a safety telematics solution versus a traditional operationally focused telematics solution.
This system, we went in with just the OBD2 ports because we were, you know, probably 3-4 years ago when we rolled this out. So we didn't have cameras. That is really another part of the discussion we can have. But it was just really the scoring. And so I personally put a device in my personal truck. I drive my own truck for work, but then they could see that I was on the same plan that they were. And, you know, I saw my driving improve. In fact, my wife says, hey, you need to take that thing out. We're in a hurry to go over here. And it's like, no, this is making me a better driver. So when they saw that I was willing to put this device in my own personal vehicle and be measured alongside with all of our workforce, I think that really engaged them to say, okay, this isn't about Big Brother. This is just about trying to make our fleet safer. And, you know, what they've seen is that accidents cost us a lot of money. And, you know, we're in the contracting business, and you need to be the low cost producer. You know, that's how we get work. And that's how their livelihood is reliant upon us having the ability to get work. So if we have lower insurance costs, we're not out damaging pickup trucks, that makes us safer, lowers our costs, increases our ability to get them more work. So they're like, okay, yes, let's all become better drivers so that we do have the lowest cost basis and have the safest fleet.
And we personally love that. Mike, he led by example, that he put the camera in his own vehicle first. You know, that instantly softened the concerns of the drivers, right? Because his team, it sounds like they respect that leadership and that transparency. And more importantly, it created that immediate buy-in. You know, the rollout became more about shared accountability, not just surveillance. I mean, it's dash cams, right? I mean, everyone kind of thinks it's a hard sell. A lot of the fleet managers and safety managers we talk to, they're kind of hesitant to, in quotes, be that company that deploys a dash cam solution because nobody wants Big Brother watching. And we completely understand that. But when we really position the dash cam as not necessarily a solution to deploy to be spyware, right? But to use it to help the company be sustainable because insurance costs will inevitably decrease with the adoption of a video telematics platform. Okay, and that's either between the reduction in the frequency and cost of claims or the company's loss runs are much better, whether you have a policy, whether you are self-insured, whether you are part of a captive. You know, the less claims, the better. Whether you are in a position to save on premium dollars that you're spending, or more importantly, keep the money that you're setting aside to cover insurance claims, the value is clear. And the drivers understand it's really not necessarily about spying on me, but what technology are you bringing to bear to make sure that I'm able to get back to my family safe tonight after my shift, right? So we were actually curious about Mike's opinion and how his team accepted the adoption and the idea of the dual-facing dash cam, the one that faces the road, but more importantly, the one that monitors the behavior of the driver itself. And we have a clip talking specifically about the camera adoption that Granite looks to employ.
A couple incidences that have proven that to our drivers is our drivers drive around with trucks with big logos on the side of it. And a lot of people know Granite Construction Company. And when they see that, sometimes we can be a target for things. And we've had 3 incidents recorded where our person was in traffic. The car in front of them, you see the reverse lights turn on and the person backs into us in traffic. So that looks like we ran into the back of them if you didn't have a device recording that. And in 2 of those situations, the driver came out and said, "Oh, you ran into the back of me. You ran into the back of me." And we said, "No, look, we have a camera." And it didn't do any damage to our truck because we're driving these big, heavy trucks, but it damaged their car. Both those people just left the scene. So our drivers saw that, hey, this is made to protect me because the company trusts what I'm doing out there, but they don't trust all these other drivers. And here they're making it so that I have the tools that I can safely go out there. I know if I'm driving correctly and I'm following all the rules and someone cuts me off or something happens, I'm going to have evidence that it wasn't my fault. And so situations like that really changed our driver's attitude of that, hey, this is in there to protect me, because I would have been at fault in these. People would have said, "Oh, I ran into the back of the vehicle." So,
wow. So for Granite, the turning point was protection. You know, after a few incidents where the footage exonerated Granite right after an accident, you can imagine that trust in the cameras skyrocketed, right? The driver saw it wasn't about catching mistakes. It wasn't about monitoring me and, figuring out if I'm texting and driving or eating or drinking or sleeping or smoking or all the AI benefits you get with the driver-facing dash cam to help coach a driver to stay, in quotes, in their lane. But it really was more importantly about protecting the driver and proving the truth, right? And I believe that was paramount to having the drivers be bought in to the dash cam because it was ultimately there to protect them, right? So coming back to telematics and driver behavior in general, right? What we obviously know that the ability to coach a driver in real time can make a measurable impact on driver scores and the frequency and cost of accidents and claims and all the good stuff. But we really wanted to understand the impact of a solution that incorporated driver safety telematics, versus one that didn't necessarily coach the drivers in real time. So we wanted to actually see, after the program matured, what behavioral shifts did Mike see over time in and around safety metrics. So let's hear what he had to say about that one.
And everyone knows what the expectations are and knows that, hey, this system is out there to protect us against some employees driving at high speed, being in collisions. The cameras are there to protect them from the public being involved in an incident that's not their fault. So all those things have made our drivers say yes, they like to have this tool in their cab because it does make them a better driver. When we started, I think our average score was in the high 60s. Now we really have very few drivers that aren't 80, and most of our drivers are in the 90% range. And so it's been really good to see the number of out-fault accidents have gone way down. We used to have about 10 per year, and in the last 2 years we've had 0. So it's been some big improvements.
I'd say from 10 accidents a year to 0. I mean, the results, they speak volumes. What Mike was alluding to was a driver score, right? The highest score a driver can have is 100, right? And it's a metric that most telematics systems employ that aggregate data around hard braking, sudden acceleration, speeding, hard cornering, idling, phone usage, things of that nature. And the fact that Mike mentioned that when he deployed a solution that had proactive driver coaching and the average score jumped from the mid 60s to the 90s, what we know for a fact is a 10% increase in driver scores can result in a 40% decrease in risk. And we're not surprised then that Granite's at-fault accidents dropped from 10 to 0, literally over 2 years, right? But even more powerful was the shift in the mindset. Drivers began self-correcting before the alerts even came, which truly showed the effectiveness of a driver coaching program using telematics and hearing a little something in the cab beeping at you to remind you to stay within driving safe parameters. All right. So as you know, dash cam systems today, they can expand beyond a road-facing camera and a driver-facing camera and provide 360 visibility around the vehicle. Right? So taking that into account, we actually asked Mike, how are you using these auxiliary cameras as part of your safety strategy? Let's see what he had to say.
Also have a policy of move forward first. And the auxiliary cameras, they do record backing incidences. And so, is someone backing in the way that they're supposed to? And it's really good that you really have another set of eyes back there with, these cameras are really trying to help us prevent backing incidences. And are people making the best decisions when they are backing? And it definitely has helped in that to make us understand that, hey, backing is a big deal. And also, the second thing that we've gotten out of it is a lot of our big commercial trucks, these guys don't have, if you didn't have a backup or a camera in back of you, you don't get to see the whole story of what plays out on the highway. We have trucks that have stopping distances that aren't anywhere close to a car. And if someone's coming up fast behind us, pulls in front of one of our trucks and brake checks us, you kind of get that whole play out too. So those are the two big things that we've seen, is that the auxiliary camera can show you the whole play out of someone, if they've cut us off, that they've really pulled in and brake checked our drivers, and then also for the best way to back in and that whole move forward process to reduce the number of backing incidences.
Got it. Yeah. So listen, Mike shared how they began using additional cameras as backup cams, right? It gives the drivers a clearer view of blind spots, helps ensure safer maneuvering in a tight job site environment. But as you heard, it's also a powerful tool in reducing fraudulent claims. You know, I love the use case that he describes about clearly seeing a vehicle, cutting them off and brake checking. And with that full 360-degree view of incidents, it really gains the ability for a fleet like Granite to show what really happened from all the angles and be fully covered. And the expansion of that video coverage is really just one more example of how a thoughtful telematics use case can protect both drivers and companies before and sometimes even after the incident occurs. But we like the before part because we like how this technology prevents these accidents potentially from ever even happening in the first place. And back to the safety component with Mike and Granite, we actually wanted to know what kind of measurable outcomes Granite saw once the program was up and running. So let's hear about Mike talking about some of those scoring improvements a little bit more.
And this really, if someone's starting up with a new platform, is actually start with turning off any alerts. Because that's essentially the platform that we started. We had this other system in our trucks that did not give any type of alerts, didn't tell the drivers anything. It just recorded what they were doing. So it really allows you to benchmark how good or bad your drivers are. And then you can turn on the alerts and really get a good comparison to, okay, where were you before Azuga and a system that gives you alerts, and where are you a month later? And in that month period, we saw our average score on the old system go from a 66 average to about a 91 in 1 month. And we were at 66 for over a year, in that 60 range, plus or minus, for over a year. Our drivers weren't getting any of the feedback. The minute we give them feedback, they instantly became better drivers.
Wow. So that's interesting. I love that approach that Mike took when he explained that their team started off by actually turning off all the driver alerts, those real-time notifications in the cab from a coaching perspective. And it helped them essentially benchmark performance without intervention. And as you heard, though, but for over a year, the driver scores had little change. But once they enabled the real-time feedback, the results were dramatic. And I'm still baffled in a very good way on the impact that it made, where the average score jumped by almost 30%, like those very important driver score. And it's really a stunning leap, and for us looking at this, it came not just from stricter enforcement, but just simpler visibility. As Mike put it, the minute we gave them feedback, the instantly better they became, right? And that to us is the real value of safety telematics. For it empowers drivers to self-correct in real time. And that approach just doesn't improve the scores. It reduces risk, it prevents accidents, and it builds a culture where drivers take ownership of their performance. And how do you build upon that ownership? Because to us, you should reward safe behavior, right? Positive reinforcement matters. The carrot versus the stick. With today's telematics platforms, it's very easy to turn these monitoring systems from being a gotcha to, hey, great job. And we personally asked Mike what kind of rewards and recognition programs work for them. So let's hear what he had to say about that.
The other thing that we put in place that created some incentives were Azuga allows for a gift card system. And so every week, the top 10 drivers out of roughly 100 can get a $10 gift card. Most of them select Amazon gift cards. And I'm hearing from a lot of the guys that if they don't get in the top 10, their wife wants to know why they didn't get an Amazon card. that week. They better get their driving together and get in that top because they want that reward. So it's been a good gamification to see who's going to get the top 10. And it really, all that system is all automated. It doesn't take any special management. And that's what I really love about this platform. It's so hands off that it's putting all the control in the drivers. They're getting the feedback. They're making these improvements themselves because of all the feedback they get, the rewards. They know that this system is there to protect them with the cameras. So it's really had a good positive impact on our drivers.
Thank you, Mike. And thanks for the Azuga plug, by the way. Although, obviously, from a consultative approach today, what we're trying to stress to everybody is a rewards program. Now, a program that I happen to work with might technically have a solution like that, but Mike kept it simple. Amazon gift cards and public shout-outs, right? And then the impact, it rippled out, right? Because the spouses started asking about weekly gift cards and standings. And that's when you know that the message is landing at home, right? So as simple as it is to have some sort of a weekly or monthly reward for the safest driver for that week or that month or whatever, fits within your company's culture. Quick story. We've actually personally consulted with another fleet that at the end of the year, the safest driver actually gets a new Ford F-150. So that's how serious that particular fleet takes into account driver safety and driver telematics and driver coaching, because if it's worth it for them to give away a $100,000 truck at the end of the year because of the savings that they're getting by having a culture of safety driven by a safety telematics, driver coaching, scoring, and rewards program, it's a testament to the real life savings that get triggered by implementing this kind of a platform, beyond making sure that the drivers are in a position to drive the vehicles as safe as possible. So we actually asked Mike if the platform he switched to lived up to his expectations versus reality, because like any other software solution deployment, there's what the salespeople told you, right? And then there's what is the reality of it once you deployed it, and so the potential value and impact. So let's hear what Mike thought regarding the expectations he had versus the reality of the deployment.
When we got the cameras in and we have the whole platform working, what I really liked was how little time it took of managers' time for making our fleet better. Before, I would say we were monitoring what happened. We recorded these scores, but we weren't doing anything to improve the driving of our employees. And I really like that feature, that it wasn't me or the superintendents having to call the foreman or any of the workers out there to say, hey, you got to become a better driver and you have to do this. They just naturally, when they saw all the 100 of our drivers, no one wants to be at the bottom. And people naturally all just took their scores up to the top. So that's been the nicest thing about this platform. It's like, oh, it's another thing for me to manage. No, it's actually saved me management time, because now I'm not having to deal with 10 at-fault accidents a year like we had in the past. That could easily take a day or two a month out of your time. Well, yeah, we have a new system to manage, but it really does it on its own by giving the drivers that immediate feedback.
Big surprise there was time savings. That was something that I personally didn't factor in, because for Mike in his day-to-day and his team, Rather than spending hours chasing down issues, managers could actually focus on real coaching moments as well as running the business, right? And I think drivers appreciated the clarity, right? No more he said, she said after an incident. But more importantly, what Mike mentioned was that gamification aspect. He loved the competition because the way that they deployed their safety telematics solution was that they gave their drivers the mobile application that showed what the driver's score was and why the driver's score was what it was, so the driver could potentially improve things, maybe better with speeding, better with hard braking. But it told Mike's drivers their score versus the other drivers. That's very important because they'll know where they stand on the totem pole. And no one wants to be at the bottom of that list and go back to the office or the garage later and be like, ew, what are you doing at the bottom of the list there, buddy? You know, so that gamification is important because it spurs on the drivers to want to compete, want to drive safe, get that reward. And we all know the associated safety and risk benefits that come along for that ride. So that was really great stuff that Mike shared about the reality of the deployment and something they didn't really expect was going to happen for them, which was even an operational streamline from a time perspective. Right. So with other fleet managers potentially here on the line, we wanted to ask Mike, for someone who is just starting down the road and starting to deploy this technology, like what's their advice? What's the advice that he would provide somebody getting started with a program like this? Let's hear what he had to say.
Yeah, talk about your drivers of why you're doing this. Don't just put something in vehicles and say, oh, we're going to start monitoring everyone's driving. That message, I would say most employees are cynical. Oh, why are they doing this? Why they want to track me to where I'm going or where I'm driving, or if I stopped by the store on the way home to pick up a loaf of bread. And people quickly figured out that no, that's not what it was about, because we told them, hey, this is why we're doing this. We want to, in our case, keep our costs low so that we can continue to get more work for you. Then they could see that connection, how if they're a better driver, it improves their livelihood because we can go get more work. And also when they saw that I was willing to get on the same platform and be scored just as right next to them and on my personal vehicle, that really took away that opportunity for them to say, well, why isn't your vehicle tracked? And I wasn't just going to give, well, I don't have a company vehicle. I said, yeah, I put it on my personal vehicle. And that kind of took that away. So those couple things within, a couple weeks, and people saw that they could see my driving too, it kind of quashed all that stuff and made it an easy transition.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty compelling. Start with leadership. Because if the managers don't embrace the feedback loop, probably the drivers won't either, right? So in the end, normalizing coaching, normalizing feedback, even at the leadership level. Make it routine, not making it punitive, right? So that was a very good advice and key to success, it sounds like, that Mike was able to provide. And then we're always cognizant of how this affects the drivers, right? Because we know it's a bit of a change in the way they're usually used to driving a corporate vehicle, knowing that these drivers weren't hired to drive, that they're highly skilled tradespeople that go out and perform construction work on a daily basis, and they happen to have to drive a corporate vehicle. So we know that they're not trained driving professionals to that respect. So when it comes to that, and then putting a telematics solution in place, for us, the adoption depends on the mindset of the driver. So with the driver thought in mind, we asked Mike how drivers reacted to the system once it was introduced. Let's see what he had to say about that.
We started off at one of our monthly foreman's meeting, and where we have all of our engineers, project managers, foremen, and told them, hey, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it. And you're going to have a device installed in your truck, so it's going to take us some time to get through the whole fleet here. But the first vehicle to be installed is my vehicle. And so you're going to see my score first before anyone else does. And then that kind of set the tone as they could see other people getting their vehicle on the platform. And it just became no big deal. And then when the gift cards were out there, and someone didn't have their system in yet, they felt like, hey, I don't have the opportunity to go win and show everyone how good I am. And that was pretty interesting to have that gift card installed right away, and people knew that. And so the people towards the end, it's like, hurry up and install my unit so I can try to earn that gift card. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love it. What I love about Mike's story is how he created that positive momentum from the start, like by putting it in his own vehicle first, leading with that transparency, building that trust. And then what really stood out is how the team bought in once the incentives were introduced, right? You could hear it. Drivers were actually asking to be installed with a telematics solution, right? Crazy, because they didn't want to miss out on recognition and rewards. And that's a perfect example of how telematics, when paired with the right culture and the right leadership, can shift that mindset from not just compliance, but to actual legit enthusiasm. Suddenly safe driving wasn't just expected, right? It was something to be proud of. We actually asked Mike to just share one more final tip, like any more advice that he can provide someone looking to make this change in their organization with safety telematics being deployed. And let's hear Mike's final comments.
Don't be discouraged by your drivers first saying, this thing is annoying, it keeps on beeping at me. Yes, and that's the idea. I've seen some evaluations happen where they'll put it out to some drivers, and the drivers will actually rank the Azuga system lower. And I was like, why are they ranking this lower? And when I read into the details, it was because this device beeps at me too much. Well, it's giving the feedback about hard accelerations. You don't even realize you're hard accelerating or that you're wearing out our brakes in 10,000 miles. So you have to be patient and let these drivers be annoyed for a short period of time. It's hard, because every time that beeps at them, it's essentially saying you're a bad driver, and that's okay, because it shows them what the expectations are. And then the next week you could see these over a month period, they've gotten past all the alerts because their driving habits have changed. And so it can be a little frustrating at first, but that's okay, because if we're going to change behavior, they need feedback. And some people, feedback when it's saying that essentially you're a bad driver can be difficult at first, but that's okay, because ultimately we're going to make you a great driver.
I agree with Mike. Feedback is everything, right? Without that visibility into what the drivers are doing, improvement is really just guesswork. And the telematics platforms of today can make performance coaching real time and data driven, which is awesome. So I really do want to thank Mike Willis and Granite Construction again for sharing their story. For us, their journey shows what's possible when technology is applied with really the right intent, not just to track, but to truly coach and empower. From Mike's leadership during the rollout to the measurable safety gains to the shift in driver mindset and culture, it is very clear that the impact of telematics goes well beyond the hardware. It's about visibility. It's about accountability and really creating that workplace where safety is part of every decision. And the best part, this kind of transformation isn't hypothetical. It's already happening right here in California, with one of your own NCBE associate members. So the tools are available today, and these benefits are real, and they are in reach. Because remember, the company's using safety telematics for that 60% reduction in accidents, that 30 to 40% reduction in insurance claims, and other operational efficiencies across the board. It's not just being safer, it's just being smart and having a smarter business model. All right. Check in the Q&A. If you have any follow-up questions, we're going to make sure we help provide you the forum to do so. And any follow-up, I don't see any questions in the chat, so no worries there. And honestly, if you have more questions or you want to explore what building a safer driving culture could look like for your organization, I'm actually going to kick it back to Eric at Advanced Telecom Solutions, who's the resource and the right person to work with us and help talk about how these platforms can help the cause from a safety perspective. Eric, take it away. Eric, I think we got you on mute, my friend. No worries.
Thanks, Chris. Sorry about that.
You're
Yeah,
good.
I just want to say for all of the NCBE community, I want to thank you for joining today. Hopefully, I'm sure that the information that was shared was really helpful. Thinking about this, my big takeaways are, driving smarter and safer, as Chris mentioned, getting you back to your home, back to your family safely, right? And also the fact that um, implementing these solutions, right, it can save your business time and money. So this is all really good stuff. And so, like Chris mentioned, if you to kind of get a deeper dive with any of this information, reach out to me, and I'm happy to get a conversation going with Chris and the Azuga team. And knocked out of the park today, Chris and the Azuga team. So thank you very much. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out and time today. Thank you.
Thank you.